Good evening, I'm Barkha Dutt. You're with the Mojo Story. There is never a dull moment in Indian politics, and you know that election season is well and truly here when Hindu-Muslim fault lines become the main headlines. Today we're going to be talking about the Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath. Let's bring up a big political story on the program today. The Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister's Abba Jaan anti-Muslim swipe at a public event in Kushinagar in Uttar Pradesh has created an uproar. The UPCM used the phrase in reference to a prior appeasement that he now says has ended. The response on the internet was also swift, with users sharing photographs of their parents to push back against the Abba Jaan swipe with a Hamare Abba Jaan campaign of their own. This has followed another snafu, as it were, when a major newspaper published what was meant to be a UP government advertisement displaying pictures of Kolkata instead. Indian Express then apologized. As Yogi Adityanath grabs the headlines, pre-election surveys are suggesting that despite a fall in his popularity from 2017, he's still distinctly ahead of all other leaders and all other parties, despite these controversies, despite the farmer protests, and despite the COVID management. But in election season, is Hindutva and communal politics well and truly back? That's if you ever think it had gone away from the public discourse. That is the subject of our debate today, and let us introduce our guests on the program today. Let's bring them up one by one. We're joined by Ambreen Zaidi, who's a columnist and an educationist. Welcome, Ambreen. Shantanu Gupta, political analyst, biographer of Yogi Adityanath, is with us as well. Saba Naqvi, a well-known veteran journalist and columnist, is with us. And we're also joined by Dr. A.K. Verma, who's a political analyst from Uttar Pradesh. Welcome to the program, Dr. Verma. Shantanu, let me start by asking you how you read the context of this remark. It has widely been seen as a comment on so-called Muslim or minority appeasement. Some BJP leaders have argued that it was actually a swipe at Mulayam Singh Yadav. In fact, Yogi Adityanath has once before used this phrase in the context of vaccine hesitancy, is what I remember, by opposition leaders. But for most people, it looks like he's taking a swipe at Indian Muslims. How do you explain this remark? What was the need for it?
I think, Barkha, I look at it two ways. First of all, in the latest contest, he was talking about the new ration system in UP, and he was telling how in the previous regime the ration quota and various schemes are distributed based on the caste and religion you have, right? So I think this is also up to us. Do we want to do a show on Abba Jaan, or do we want to do a show on the how ration is improved? Because improvement of ration may be a boring topic for you, and Abba Jaan is an exciting topic for you. That's why you are taking that up, right? So I think that's also commentary on all of us who do a commentary on one part of the whole speech and not on the rest of the story. That's one. Second thing here, he's surely taking a jibe on how minority appeasement was so blatant in Samajwadi Party government, and from their manifesto to how they conducted themselves. I'm sure you all remember they asked for a reservation for Muslim community, which court have struck down. They have asked for freeing the terror accused, which court have struck down. They've implemented scholarship for Muslim girl. So I think he was just showing a lens to the people that how, and he was showcasing the ration case in particular, that how schemes were distributed, how electricity were distributed based on the religion, based on the constituency, favorite constituency, non-favorite constituency. He was just showing this, that how governments were conducting themselves then. Just if you give me 10 more seconds, because the topic of ration is boring for many, but let me point out what Yogi Adityanath has done. All 14.5 crore ration beneficiaries of UP are Aadhaar seated now. All 80,000 ration holders, ration shops have a POS machine, and 97 to 98% ration transaction in UP happens today on Aadhaar validation. 25 lakhs ghost beneficiaries are removed. More than 1,000 crores is saved by the food department. That was the topic he was trying to explain, and he just said this is not the case in the previous government. And I'm making a point again. We are still not discussing the ration, how it's transformed in
But
UP.
can I
We are still
ask you
talking Abba
something?
Jaan.
Can I ask you something? If he really wanted the focus to be on rations, and I know you're accusing people like us of taking one phrase and building a program around it, why would he use that phrase, right? Why would he reference, for example, Bangladesh, which he does, and we'll play out the clip in a moment from now. If indeed a chief minister wanted to draw his attention to the efficient delivery of rations, why would he need to bring in a phrase like Abba Jaan at all? I'm going to play out the bite in a moment, but I'll let you respond to that, Shantanu.
First of all, I talked to my couple of my Urdu scholar friends who said Abba Jaan is a word in honor, is a very respectful word. And I told you, and I gave you detail. He meant, see, political speeches are not corporate speeches. They are meant for multiple purposes. So he was explaining his ration scheme also, and he was also explaining that how minority appeasement was blatant. So this was both the part of his speeches. But I'm saying we are only concerned on the Abba Jaan, but we are not concerned on the ration scheme that he has unfurled.
Okay, I'm going to play from now what Mr. Adityanath actually said. But Saba, you were among those who went on Twitter, and you also used the hashtag Hamare Abba Jaan. You shared photographs of your father, journalist Said Naqvi, to make a point. Now you heard what Shantanu said, that this was really a political point. It was a point about the Samajwadi Party. It's a phrase that has been used before. I remember that in the context of vaccine hesitancy. I think Yogi Adityanath said, "Oh, some people get vaccinated only after their Abba Jaans do," meaning Mulayam Singh Yadav. Do you find that a reasonable explanation, Saba?
Barkha, I find no equivalence in this argument at all. This is akin to hate speech. What was said is akin to hate speech. Here you had the head of state of Uttar Pradesh saying that one section of people had eaten up all the rations. Now he's been in power for 5 years, so I suppose he's presuming he's talking about the era before that. Had anybody made a remark like this, let's say about Dalits, and was there laws, it would have been under the SC/ST Act atrocity. It was blatantly hate speech, it was communal, it was dog whistling, it was everything. So this kind of, I'm not going to respond to that. I have something to say about this. This is, this kind of vague, lame argument. If you want to talk about ration, talk about ration, yeah? This is rubbish. So this is hate speech, plain and simple. And I would not be surprised if somewhere or the other somebody takes cognizance of it. There is someone who goes to court and says, is this not hate speech?
Well,
it's possible. It will depend on I repeat this, whether they bring 20 FIRs or not. This was hate speech. There is dog whistling. We know there is dog whistling about Muslims. Today, the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh went into blatant hate speech when he said that a section of UP society, which is 20% of the population, 1/5, are eating up all the ration, where there is no evidence of something like this. What is this got to? He's been in power for 5 years. The BJP is in power. It's nothing. It is a fascistic statement by somebody who is known to make this kind of statement, and this was hate speech, and he's holding high office.
Okay, we're seeing on our screen how people chose to answer what Saba Naqvi is calling hate speech, what Shantanu is describing as a political point about mismanagement by prior governments. The hashtag Hamare Abba Jaan trended and has continued to trend in response to the comments that were made by Yogi Adityanath, with many Indians sharing photographs of themselves with their fathers. Abba Jaan, of course, in Urdu refers to one's father. Now, I can see Sharat Pradhan, senior journalist, joining us as well. But before I come back, and I want Shantanu to respond to what he's just heard and everybody else as well, let decide for themselves what they feel when they hear Yogi Adityanath saying what he does. Let's play out exactly what he said.
और भाइयों बहनों, तुष्टीकरण की राजनीति जब तक देश के अंदर थी तब विकास नहीं था, तब दंगे थे, तब भ्रष्टाचार था, तब अराजकता थी, तब आतंकवाद था, तब अत्याचार था, तब अन्याय था। लेकिन आज सबका साथ, सबका विकास और इसके साथ जुड़ता है सबका विश्वास। भाइयों बहनों, सबका साथ, हर गरीब को शौचालय, क्या शौचालय देने में किसी का चेहरा देखा गया? नहीं, हर गरीब को राशन मिल रहा होगा ना। आप लोगों को राशन मिल रहा है? मिल रहा है राशन? क्या ये राशन 2017 के पहले भी मिलता था? क्योंकि तब तो अब्बा जान कहने वाले राशन हजम कर जाते थे। तब कुशीनगर का राशन नेपाल पहुंच जाता था, बांग्लादेश पहुंच जाता था। और आज कोई इन गरीबों का राशन निकलेगा तो राशन तो नहीं निकल पाएगा, लेकिन जेल जरूर चला जाएगा।
Okay, and the crowd is clearly responding in roaring approval, and that is something to take note of also. Shantanu, do you want to respond to Saba's very passionately argued point about this being hate speech? And I want to add a question of my own. I can't help but notice the irony of two things that simultaneously happened in the last 24 hours. One was this particular advertisement, which was meant to be an advertisement for the UP government in the Indian Express. Let's bring it up for a moment. It was meant to be about the achievements of UP, but the agency published images of, can we take the banner off? Published images of Kolkata. Indian Express then goes on to Twitter to apologize, even though Indian Express presumably did not choose these images. It was probably done by the marketing agency. I do not know if it was finally approved by the UP government or not. So on the one hand, you have the newspaper pretty much sort of issuing this apology, and there's been a great deal of focus on whether it should have apologized or not. At the other hand, I don't think we'll ever see an apology for comments that are widely perceived to be anti-Muslim. Do you not see that as ironic, Shantanu? The contrast between these two events. अखबार माफी मांग रहा है और दूसरी तरफ जो मुख्यमंत्री हैं वो एक ओपनली एक मुसलमानों के खिलाफ एक जाइब ले रहे हैं.
One thing, I'll repeat myself, maybe I'll try to articulate myself differently. First of all, these two are very unrelated events. What Indian Express published, be it the mistake of the advertising agency or be it the mistake of Indian Express, I think it's a mistake. UP has created many expressways. Any expressway UP could have been produced very easily, and Purvanchal Expressways will be launched very recent. Will be launched next month. Bundelkhand Express will be launched in December. So there are many expressways which are done in Yogi's time. So I think that's just a mistake. And which happens in Akhilesh Yadav time, there was a poster where you have a American system of driving, right-hand driving they have shown. So I think that's fine, that keeps happening. I think here I'm saying again, first of all, Abba Jaan is not a word of contempt. It's a word you said lovingly to your father in Urdu. Second thing, I'm telling you, he was making a political statement that in previous governments, a lot of schemes were made keeping in mind that I want to appease Muslims. I counted a couple of them. How you want to free terror accused, how you want to give Muslim reservation, how you want to give scholarship to Muslim girls, and there are multiple. And who doesn't know that MY combination? I'm sure you must have talked 1,000 times. Your panelists must have talked 1,000 times. How Saba thrives on Yadav Muslim combination. So why to shy away? Just Yogi Adityanath is making that plain and simple. This is the ethos of the previous government. This is my ethos. So I think why do you shy away from that?
So would you describe it, and I want to bring in now Sharat, Ambreen and Dr. Verma, would you describe it very briefly, Shantanu, as anti-Muslim?
Why anti-Muslim? I'm saying it was just pointing to Samajwadi Party that their policies were based on a religion, based on a sect, and not my policies. When I make a toilet, it's for everyone. When I give ration, it's for everyone.
Okay.
Who is the right beneficiary? He's just making that statement.
Okay, before I come to the political analyst, I want to ask Ambreen, how you feel today as a military wife, as a member of the Fauji community, when you hear this speech. And I know previously you've come on the programs and spoken about how you're sick to death of competitive communal politics. You feel crushed somewhere, in between the extreme spaces. And we also have photographs of your Abba Jaan, which we'll show in a moment from now, Ambreen. But go ahead, your thoughts today.
Well, Barkha, this is election time, election season. Today it is Abba Jaan. Tomorrow it will be Ammi Jaan. And few days later, some other party will come, oh, Musalman, Meri Jaan, come. They'll come as a messiah and, gather all the votes and walk away and never look back. And this is what has happened to Muslims throughout the years and throughout the rule of so many parties. And yes, that's my Abba Jaan, who fought for the rights of the underprivileged, for the education of the underprivileged, for upliftment of underprivileged. And I'm so proud of his to be his daughter. I'm taking forward his mission to bring every, not just Muslim, every underprivileged person out of his misery. He used to quietly do it in his own way. He used to give speeches in religious ceremonies where there were women who were, abused by their own community members. So I'm very proud of the fact that I'm his daughter. I'm daughter of Abba. I call him daddy. But I wish what the chief minister said was true. And I wish Muslim appeasement, the way it has been played every year when we approach, every time when we approach elections, if it was true, Muslims would not have been in such a state. You travel across UP, you travel into the interiors, and you will see the state that we are in. And it's not just Muslims; it's everyone. People are dying of hunger. Where is the ration? I wish Muslim appeasement worked as much as it worked in the speeches. It only worked for the votes. They got them the votes, they got their votes and walked away. Nobody, not a single party. Muslims have been very gullible, very naive. They saw a messiah in Samajwadi Party. They sometimes saw a messiah in Mayawati. Now they see a messiah in Owaisi Saab. Okay, so now Owaisi will take us out of the rut. But no, it is Muslim, the Musliman of UP, of India, who has to work for himself. We have to stop looking at these political leaders, stop reacting at these speeches, provocative statements, and work on ourselves, work for the community to bring them.
Okay. I think I'm struck by the fact that you feel angry and hurt today, but you feel as used and as manipulated if somebody had been quoting the Muslim vote consciously. I think you're saying, अगर Muslim मेरी जान कोई बोलता तो उससे भी आपको नाराजगी होती, Ambreen.
Muslim Meri Jaan bolta, Muslim would have been wooed and they would have voted for them and gone with them. And then these only people who acted as messiahs of Muslims would never look back and work for them. Aaj tak groundwork to kisi ne kiya hi nahi hai. So blaming somebody ke bhai Abba Jaan, Ammi Jaan, Muslim, Hindu, nahi, that doesn't work. Muslims have to understand कि भाई, you are there for yourself, work on yourself, be strong enough to work on yourself, because these politicians will only play politics with you and your emotions. That is it.
Okay, I just want to come to Dr. Verma and Sharat on the political sort of readings of the tea leaves. But Saba, I'd allow you a brief response to 1 minute, to Shantanu's continued argument that this is a point about the Samajwadi Party.
How can he? I mean, he's standing in a public podium being recorded, and he's referring to Abba Jaan. He's referring to the phrase. I mean, I call my father Papa, but that's not the point. I've never called him Abba Jaan, but he called his father Abba Jaan. You know, so he's referring to a community, and it is supposed to be respectful towards Muslims. And I just, even to Ambreen, I mean, I don't know what the Muslims have done here. Their livelihoods are being taken away. They are falling on every indicator. So what does it mean Muslims should look inward? Is the suggestion that my fellow panelist is making is that they should retreat from public life, or they should not have voting choices, because the BJP certainly wants to vote, to polarize against them. So I'm a bit baffled that why Muslims are being brought into, as if they have to explain something, explain their bad behavior all these years for voting.
Ambreen, you want to respond?
I'm sorry.
Ambreen, are you being too defensive?
That's what it sounded like to me.
Ambreen, are you being too defensive?
I, on the other hand, in the face of threats, will carry on saying this was hate speech. I will repeat it.
Okay, Ambreen, do you think...
I'm not going to say, oh God, the Muslims are so gullible. Of course, they were exercising voter choices. Do I call the people who Yogi is addressing, do I say they are gullible? Because they are going to hear this ration ki baat after hunger, after the devastating Are Muslims specifically gullible? Are Muslims gullible for voting, for making choices? What is this kind of There is no equivalence. I'm sorry, this argument keeps going into finding an equivalence. I've lost patience with these intellectually weak kind of arguments, but we can carry on with them,
No. 1 minute. I think there's no doubt that even though Ambreen, the comment may have been about the Samajwadi Party to make a political point, Shantanu is also not denying that there are specific examples of what Yogi Adityanath calls Muslim appeasement that were being referenced there. Very briefly, because the other two gentlemen are waiting, to Saba's point that you're being a defensive Indian Muslim, what would you say? Or an apologetic Indian Muslim, what would you say?
Not at all. I'm saying if there was a Muslim appeasement, if Muslims were eating away the rations, they wouldn't have been in the condition they are in right now, today. They're dying. There are no jobs. There's no education. Look at the statistics. If there was ever Muslim appeasement, show me. Where is it?
Okay. We'll take that to Shantanu, but I want to also look at we can't divorce, unfortunately, the politics of what's happening. We are just a few months away from the assembly elections. Dr. Verma, मैं आपसे शुरू करती हूँ. We saw the crowd, approving of this speech, of this jibe, of what we find coarse, but the voters at least, or the potential voters clearly loving. A recent ABP C voter survey still places Yogi Adityanath very clearly ahead of all other choices. Despite the COVID controversy, despite the farmers' protests in Western UP, and certainly despite comments like this. Dr. Barma, I'll start with your responses. Go ahead, sir.
But I want to take this discussion to a different trajectory, and I have to quickly make 3 points. One is that language has become a casualty in Indian politics, and that speaks too much about the political culture and the culture of language that we are having at the moment. And politicians are not really, in a position to control their language, be it West Bengal, Didi Jaib, or be it this Abba Jaan Jaib. Abba Jaan, by any stretch of imagination, is not a derogatory term, and certainly it was not a jibe on Muslims. It was a jibe on probably the Samajwadi Party and their ruling dispensation. So that is one thing, but certainly one must desist from using a language which could hurt any section of the society. So that is one thing, and this goes for all the leaders and all the political parties, that they have to be a little more careful about the language that they are using. The second thing that I wish to mention in this entire discussion is that ideology is one thing which gives you a different lens altogether, and the jibe is subject to various kind of interpretation depending on the ideological lens that you are wearing. So I don't want to be dragged on that dispute, but certainly I think that the point that earlier speakers were making, they had their points, but as a political analyst, I would understand that the communalization of politics is a reality, be it UP or be it the country, and that is a thing which, as a student of democracy, I would probably be a little unhappy about. But the problem is that right from the beginning, the way minorities they have been handled. In fact, most of the political parties, they have been keeping the minorities as a minority. They have not been allowing this minority to be integrated to the Indian society. Most of the Muslims are, these political parties, they have been doing damage to the Muslims to whom they claim to protect. That is one thing. And lastly, one thing more which I want to say is, and that is that the third very important thing is that you can also look at the whole thing from the lens of inclusive politics. And one thing which is very advantageous, you said that you are referring to some surveys by some agencies, that the kind of voting share that the BJP has, 39 points in 2017 and 48% in 2019, that suggests that these things and the crowd, etc., they are irrelevant. If you could have seen the Varanasi crowd of Samajwadi Party and the Congress, or the Mayawati and the Samajwadi Party, then would have different conclusions to draw. So don't go by the crowd psychology and don't go by the crowd scrambles. The day of the ballot is a very different day actually, and that decides who is going to win.
Okay, fair enough. We'll come back to what the ballot might be suggesting to us at this point, or is it too early? But Sharat, let's bring you in straight away. Dr. Verma made the point that Abba Jaan is not a slur. Shantanu made the same point. It's the context in which it was used that makes it perceived to be an anti-Muslim comment, not the two words itself. But Dr. Verma's point is also one to be noted, that this is not going to boomerang for Yogi Adityanath. If anything, this polarization actually helps parties, helps the BJP politically. Sharat, go ahead. Sharat, I think you're frozen.
I wonder whether there is any. Can you hear me? I
go
wonder
ahead.
if there is any need to decipher what Yogi Adityanath said, because it is so blatant. It's so blatantly anti.
Okay, I think Sharat has a terrible line. So let me actually take the same question to you, Shantanu. Would you say, irrespective of how you interpret this statement, that this is a knowing Hindutva politics that actually helps the BJP? And my next question would be that if indeed Yogi Adityanath wants to be judged on governance, on his handling of the COVID pandemic, on the ration scheme, why is Hindutva needed, necessary, important, relevant at all? Why is the BJP falling back on that? Would you at least see this speech as a Hindutva speech? Shantanu?
Just give me a second.
Sure.
Yeah. See, first of all, I'll make 2 points. Whenever a voter votes, I think if I go back to my maths days, it's a multivariable equation. It doesn't vote on an X or a Y. It's a X plus Y plus Z plus A plus B plus C and D. I think we the panelists become, okay, he's voting for Hindutva, he's voting for development, and he's voting for national issues, local issues. There are a lot of issues that come by, right? A lot of people vote, am I getting ration properly? Is my law and order better? Are my roads better? Are my electricity better? And a lot of also people vote, do I identify with this leader? Is he from the same age group, same gender, maybe same caste, maybe from same religion? Or at least is he giving... is he helping me to pursue my life the way I want, a Hindu life or whichever caste I want to pursue? So I think it's not a single judgment any voter makes, right? And I want to make it again that you want to call it a Hindutva jibe. I will just say it's a jibe on Samajwadi's party's Muslim appeasement, which they're still doing. They have,
but you heard what Ambreen said, कि अगर इतनी appeasement थी तो socio-economic indicators मुसलमान समाज के क्यों नहीं improve हुए?
That's the meaning of appeasement. You just show the lollipop and don't do anything. That's the meaning of appeasement. और खाना खिलाने से कुछ समाज का भला नहीं हो जाता है. तो I think you will give खाना, but you will not make sure that they become political leaders. Apart from Azam Khan, you will not make sure that a lot of people rise in the ranks of politics. It's only Yadav Khandan and Yadav Khandan. In 2007-8, there were 22 people from Yadav families from Etawah who were in politics in different parts of Uttar Pradesh. And that's the meaning of appeasement. You don't do anything, but you keep showing the lollipop.
Okay, so let me bring in now Saba to respond to this. Saba, let's look at those argument that yes, indeed, Muslim appeasement, that phrase that has become such a staple of our politics in North India at least, is not denied in that speech, but the target is the Samajwadi Party. The target is Akhilesh Yadav. The target is not you and Ambreen.
If I go around abusing Dalits, I will have a SC/ST Atrocity Act case on me, okay? So I am finding this kind of interpretation of the speech a bit baffling. It is it is targeting a particular community, a community whose livelihoods are under threat. They have been ever since he came to power. It is open. That is the basis of the strength. As a political analyst, as someone with a village home in Uttar Pradesh, with family all over the state, I believe BJP is very, very strong over there, and is very, very strong. And in the face of disastrous performance with the COVID, the Delta wave and everything else, UP is the gad right now. Gujarat is not the gad. UP is the gad of Hindutva, and this is what all he has to offer right now. What is his experience? He's a Gorakhnath temple. He was the head of that. That is what he knows, the chief minister, right? So one could have he had a Gandhi who, I mean, this is a country which had a Mahatma Gandhi who used to sit there and fast when there were communal riots. And today, this is what we have. Let's face it. This is what we are reduced to. Ghatiya baat. Jis tarah ki ghatiya baat hui hai, and I do not hesitate. This is what we have today. So let's analyze it. it is successful. It is all they have. So then it is a combination of the non-dominant OBCs, constant abuse of Muslims, which are 20% of the population, and the mandal that the BJP has, it includes Kamandal also.
But
Because
doesn't it? Yes, yes.
unlike the mandal parties, which had a backward and Muslim combination, they have a non-dominant backward combination, which is not the Yadav, not the Chamars and the Dalits,
I think I
and the
agree with you.
upper caste.
I think I agree with you that
That is
Kamandal
the
and Mandal.
combination.
No, I
They
agree with you.
combined.
Agreed
Yeah.
that Kamandal and Mandal, Hindutva and caste politics have been welded very
Yeah.
successfully by the BJP. But does it also not speak, Saba, and then I'll take the same point to Dr. Verma, to the complete failure of the opposition parties?
That it does. Yeah.
In a year like the COVID pandemic, we were just showing you those pictures of those mass graves. There's been a big deal of debate around the handling. Akhilesh Yadav did not seize the initiative. There is a kind of defensiveness about religious politics among all of these opposition parties. Some try soft Hindutva, some try extreme Islamist politics. So why single out the BJP alone, some might ask, Saba?
So no, I entirely agree with you. I mean, I agree that there is a huge crisis staring at the opposition parties right now in Uttar Pradesh. One of the deeper reasons for that is the fact that political finance is unaccounted for. The Congress did that to us, and now the BJP has run away with all the political money, and because they are not the old elite which hung on to power like in the era of Congress was. They are wanting to grab power. So there are Damocles swords hanging over the heads of other opposition figures. But that is still not a good enough excuse. I must agree that the opposition is not performing. The only chance is if the BJP goes and defeats itself at this point. It is not impossible to imagine. If you remember, Barkha, when Bihar voted last year, everybody said nothing will happen, nothing. Tejasvi Yadav did make a dash, right, towards the end. Had there not been a slide in the third phase of the Bihar election, they were ahead in the first two phases, the opposition. But then whatever, they came close. At this point, I must say it looks it looks a Herculean task to my mind, in the face of the cadre, in the face of everything else, for the opposition to do it.
So let me get let me get Dr. Verma to respond to that. You said, sir, that don't go by the crowds. Crowds, so har neta apne gadon mein gather kar sakta hai, bade crowds, raucous crowds, enthusiastic crowds. How do you see the perception of Yogi Adityanath today in what has been an extremely difficult year, a challenging year from him, from the COVID pandemic to the farmers' protests that are taking place in the west of the state? Dr. Verma.
Barkha, I must say that for any government, these 2 years have been quite tough, and whatever, because of the resource crunch. And UP, as you must know, is the fifth largest country in the world. It's not just an Indian state; it's the fifth largest country in the world. So handling a pandemic of that global level in a state of Uttar Pradesh is not a small task. And by any stretch of imagination, no state and no government would ever prepare for such a big kind of a
so when you
problem.
This speech, okay, point taken. So when you heard this speech, did you feel that it was a deflection from issues of governance, a perfect distraction, so that the focus remains on identity politics rather than on hard questions about pandemic handling, economy, jobs, migrant workers, farmers? Is that, how did you see it, Dr.
I would not like to see that kind of a binary, that governance or pandemic. It was actually an amalgamation of all the things. And the government, if you are in the government, know of the government, and who will know better than you, that the government is seized with so many multifarious things simultaneously, and given the constraints of resources and all, the allocations has to be made accordingly. So most of the allocation has shifted to the pandemic handling, and therefore on all fronts of development and other things, there has to be a crunch of resources. That is one. The second thing is that personally people are happy with Yogi Adityanath for two counts. One is that he has been round the clock working. Whether you succeed or don't succeed, that is a different story for people to interpret and for the political parties to understand. But the people see two things very importantly. One is that he has taken the law and order situation head on in the state, and he has not spared either Hindus or Muslims on that count. So that is a very important thing, and the people at the grassroots level are feeling the relief at that. So that is a very good perception in the people. So far as this was known for Mayawati was known for this actually. Mayawati might have done a lot of stone building and all, but Mayawati was known for lot of law and order situation, because she was a strong lady and she would take law and order very seriously. So that is a parallel I can draw with Mayawati and Yogi Adityanath. So at the grassroots and ground level, we find that people are happy on the law and order situation and handling of the criminals. That is one. The second thing which the BJP must take note of is that while the chief minister, like the prime minister, must be working round the clock and must be a very clean person, the ground level MLAs and other people, they are not so well taken by the people. That is a cautious note I must send to the through your channel to the party, that the people are not happy with the MLAs in the constituency, because most of these people, they have taken as for granted that there is a Modi, there is a Yogi, and they will take care of themselves. But what is their responsibility to their constituency, whether Hindus or Muslims or Dalits?
That is a very interesting point, and in fact, it's a trend we see in many state elections now. Even in Bengal, there was a great deal of discontent with the Trinamool MLAs, but Mamta ruled the day. Here, you're suggesting that Yogi's personal brand actually remains quite strong. Now, I want to take this. We need to start taking last comments to you, Ambreen. Does it upset you today that communal comments actually have no political cost? That is what has happened, that there is no political cost, there is no necessarily correlation between how you perform electorally and making comments against a particular community. Because if there is no political cost, where do people turn to? The one way to punish politicians is to hold them to account politically. If there is no holding to account politically, where do people go? Your thoughts, Ambreen?
Yes, Barkha. So Shantanu just mentioned that the jibe was directed at the Yadav Khandan, only Yadav Khandan and the Samajwadi Party and their Muslim appeasement. So why use the word Abba Jaan? Why target Muslims? Seedhe bolo Netaji, Samajwadi Party. Why communalize a normal speech? Right. Ration kha gaye Musliman.
I'll just...
This is what this is what he said. But if the jibe was directed at Samajwadi Party, look them into their eye and say it as it is. Please stop targeting Muslims.
Let Shantanu briefly respond to that. I have two more political questions for Saba. If you want to briefly respond to that, he could have just said Netaji. If it was about the Samajwadi Party, he could have just said Netaji, and I think that's a fair question.
So, okay, maybe after 35 minutes of debate, I'm able to convince the panelists that he was targeting Samajwadi Party. Maybe you can decide and debate on his choice of word, that he would have used Netaji or Samajwadi Party or Abba Jaan. But as I think someone, I said, and Dr. Verma also said, Abba Jaan is a very respectful word. There is no contempt
hidden in the word. It was not used lovingly. It was not used in a nice way. It was used as an illustration of ration theft. That is what it was used in. It was used in that context. We heard the clip.
Anyone who understands the blatant Muslim appeasement of Samajwadi Party in UP, they will understand the context. You can debate endlessly, but anyone who understands UP and the Samajwadi Party's politics, which is so much bent on Muslim Yadav combination, they're only signaling currently that I should give signal to the Muslim voters that I am the one who is winning, because Muslim vote in UP, unfortunately, is not a positive vote. It's a negative vote. Whoever is beating BJP, Muslim votes will try to go locks and barrel to that. So Samajwadi Party will keep from now till February, keep them the signal. I am the one who is winning the election, and Yogi Adityanath was pointing to the same fact that this is their vote tactics, and let me just highlight that.
Okay, let me just come in on a last point. We don't have too much time left. Saba, you said UP is the Gad. Gujarat Gad nahi hai, ab UP Gad hai. Very interesting is that this has all happened while we've had a chief ministerial change, a sudden dramatic chief ministerial change in Gujarat. And all the guesses as usual by journalists were wrong about who the next chief minister was going to be. Now, Yogi Adityanath actually bucks the trend of BJP chief ministers, because he is perhaps the only one outside of Narendra Modi and Amit Shah who has a following, a personality and a profile of his own. He won't be like these low-key, low-profile, nationally unknown chief ministers, a slew of whom we've seen in Gujarat. So what does that say to you? What does that say to you? Because beach mein ye bhi rumors say that Amit Shah and Modi were resentful of Yogi Adityanath, but then you had the Prime Minister backing the Chief Minister on Twitter.
So the reason why Yogi Adityanath is, even if he is defeated tomorrow, here's what I have to say. Even if he is defeated tomorrow, he will remain a significant figure, because in the ideological poll, he is now the extreme Hindutva guy. And then, of course, like the Republican parties, the Ku Klux Klan also support members of the Republican parties. You will have that priest of Dasna. They're all part of the same support base, who will say atrocious things, kill the Muslims. So it goes further and further. So Adityanath Yogi is powerful because he takes the articulation a little further down the line. He is even in defeat, he will not become irrelevant. That's what I'm saying. And you can hardly get rid of him because he can create a ruckus of his own. Like you got rid of that chap in Gujarat. You can't do that with all those Rawats. That is not Adityanath Yogi. He answers to himself and whatever he believes in. So,
Shantanu, Saba, I have another question for you, but I'll let Shantanu briefly respond there. The complete contrast between all BJP chief ministers and Yogi Adityanath. What does that do to the power dynamics in a party where only, where the two men with any real authority are Amit Shah and Narendra Modi?
I think if you want me to respond to Saba, but Saba was hardly any making points. She was showing her hate for Yogi Adityanath from last.
No, she was actually making the point of his influence, the fact that he cannot be politically written off, unlike every other BJP chief minister who can.
First of all, why will BJP write someone off? BJP
Look at Gujarat. We still don't know why Rupani was sacked. Could Yogi Adityanath ever be sacked like that? No.
I think now a lot of journalists don't have the access to information. That's your frustration. I'm saying don't show it on the TV.
इसमें frustration क्या है?
पर आपको पता नहीं लग पाता है. आपके गैजेट्स फेल हो जाते हैं. See, BJP attempted to put a lot of people of political merit, of administrative merit, out of the caste politics of a particular state. Maybe it's a non-Jat in Haryana, or a non-tribal in Jharkhand, or a non-Patel in Gujarat, or a non-Maratha in Maharashtra. They did a lot of this combination. Some worked, some did not. So it doesn't mean that, okay, are they towing the line of Narendra Modi? Are they not towing the line of Narendra Modi? I think we make two simplistic frameworks and try to fit everything in that framework. Okay, Modi is running the show and everything is just Katputli. I think Narendra Modi is trying strong leaders to some are flourishing, some are not. And in that case, this is Yogi Adityanath, there is Devendra Fadnavis, though he's not a chief minister, but a very strong leader. There is Biswa Sarma. There are a lot of strong chief ministers who are running around.
Okay, I do have to end, Saba. 10 seconds to you just to close this. Politically, where do you read the tea leaves in UP?
I mean, I think nationally it's a high command party now, but Adityanath Yogi bucks the trend. And it is because of his ideological positioning. He ran a group called the Hindu Yuva Vani till the other day. Look at the history of the Hindu Yuva Vani. Look at the things they do. So you'll get an idea. You can't, it's classic stormtrooping stuff.
Okay.
I don't even want to use phrases from Europe.
Shantanu, do you have your hand up? I was going to close. Do you have your hand up to make a point, Shantanu?
Just 10 seconds. I'm saying a lot of people who are unaware of Yogi Adityanath, I wrote a whole book. If you want, I can.
I'm quite aware.
Just send it. Apart from the Hindu Yuva Vahini, which you keep only remembering, he was a 5-time member of parliament.
Of course, I know that.
When BJP was losing 2004, 2019, he was winning in exponential margin in Lok Sabha. He was not pushed through.
Okay.
He's a leader of his own making. Just don't make
I want to make one point. Yeah. I know he was a 5-time.
Yeah.
I want to make
mention that loud and clear.
Okay, I do have to close, Saba.
Victory, just because people are winning does not mean that in the country, where independence came through Gandhi, that elected representatives, no matter how powerful they are, no matter how many police FIRs they put on, how many people, that one will not point it out. Victory is no excuse for inexcusable speech. That is what I want to say.
Okay,
That's
so
all,
we end where we started. We end where we started with the focus back on that speech. I think we're going to hear a lot more speeches of a polarizing kind in the run-up to the UP election in February. But thank you for sharing your perspectives, Dr. Verma, Ambreen, Zaidi, Shantanu, Gupta, and Saba, Naqvi. And sorry, Sharat, next time we hope to have you on a better line. To our audience, we'll keep tracking the UP election. It is going to be the singular most important election after Bengal. So we'll keep a close eye. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Goodbye. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.